we're the two secular dudes, not guys, two secular dudes. And this week we've got to remember to, my wife tells me we need to smile more. I don't know if you really want me to smile because in photos I end up looking like that, or like that, or something weird. So, but I will try to smile more. Um, and I'll be talking to Colin Mackay. I'm Ian Story, and we're going to do a news segment. So this is something that Cole suggested to keep us up to date on, I guess you could say, secular slash atheist, humanist issues around the world.
Yeah,
Um,
just what's
and
going on.
Colin is super interested in these things and has a really, really comprehensive kind of slant on it. So I think I'll pass over to you, Cole, and remember to smile.
I'll do that.
Okay.
Try not to look like a newsreader, very somber.
Okay.
So this is January. This was
Yeah,
this
look like a
week.
newsreader. Yeah.
Yeah, this was this week. In Australia, secular advocacy in the 2026 census came up. So the No Religion campaign is getting started by the rationalists and other secular groups, ramping up efforts before the August 11th 26 census. They are challenging the Australian Bureau of Statistics for retaining the bias question, what is the person's religion? Arguing it assumes a religious affiliation and leads to inflated data. It's an important one because one of the topics I want to cover sometime in the next few weeks is charities. So that'll come up again because that information is used by governments or government departments and agencies to apportion funds. The hate speech bill. I hate the hate speech bill. The Rationalists again has formally opposed
Hatred.
the
Be
religious
careful of that.
exemption.
Okay. Hate the hate speech. Yeah.
Yeah,
That means you've got
it's
hatred in your heart.
which is where you measure everything. Well, I've got fear in my heart too, Ian.
Me
I live
too.
in
Me
fear
too.
of the Christian nationalists, the Zionists, the Islamic fundamentalists, like
And we were
the
just saying we're a small bunch on YouTube. Um, we've got to be careful. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. No, it changes, and well, um, so the RSA is opposing it. The religious exemption, I just don't agree with the whole thing. It's extended powers of ASIO to spy on us. You know, if we're someone who might be creating fear in the heart of a religious person somewhere, and that's all it takes. I was scared. Well, I'm scared too of exactly what this bill represents. Anyway,
Well,
the
I
RSA
did
is
when they talked about exempting religious matter. I was suggesting we could read, I think it's Joshua 6 or Joshua 9, where they kill
yeah,
everyone
yeah,
in Jericho. And apparently they're closing off that loophole now, even. Um,
yeah. So, well, hang on. So they wanted exemption for religions so that they could still stand at the pulpit and say, well, it's probably not a bad idea if we go and bash all the babies' heads on the rocks and kill everything. So they can still say all of that sort of stuff. I don't know what the lesson is in that, really, but anyway. Um,
well, it's the lesson is that God has chosen us. Yeah.
I always have you ever seen Year Zero? Sorry to get off the news. It should be much more serious, but have you seen Year Zero or Year One? I think it is with Jack Black and Michael.
Oh yeah, I have. Yeah, yeah. It's an old one. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
Um,
and Abraham's there with or is it tying up his son? Was that Abraham? Kill your son? And he's tying him up. He says, "What are you doing?" He says, "I'm going to stab him a bit. I'm just going to stab him. You're going to kill him. God said so." Yeah, all right. God said so, so therefore it's all right. So you know more about this bill than me. So they're combating the religious exemption from the bill, and I don't know if this is true now it's passed, the clause would protect those inciting hatred if they quote religious texts. Secular advocates argue
Even
that
if they quote
religious
religious text, yeah.
Yeah, secular advocates argue that religious doctrine should not be a legal shield for hate speech. And that really cuts to the core of it, doesn't it? Because, and it's interesting, they're always arguing, no, but your religion is atheism. So they always want to include us as a religion. But as soon as tax office says, well, you got to have a pretend friend in the sky before you can get your charity status as a religious charity status. So they want us in when it comes to counting data for the census, but they don't want us to have any protected speech that would criticise religion because we don't have a book. Anyway.
Well, I think when it comes down to it, they've had a lot of power because of leverage over politicians. Because a politician knows that they're very vocal, and so they've basically stayed on the right side of them up till now. But with, well, like for example, what's happened in America with TPUSA, I think it's called.
Turning Point, yeah.
Turning Point USA, yeah. And Kirk, someone he was assassinated recently under very shady circumstances. And there's a lot online about
false flag,
about how they've sort of covered their tracks, let's put it that way, and how they've sort of they're selling religion almost for mammon, for they're siding with Trump, so that they're no longer really protected because new media is showing them up. So they've got to be a bit more. They're coming out swinging, aren't they? Whereas before they didn't have to have anti-hatred laws to stop atheists talking about religion. They kind of feel they need it now.
Yeah, and I think part of
Does
that's
that make
driven
sense?
I think part of that's driven by the growth in the community. In relation to the ABS, I don't know if it comes up here, but they're expecting that this census will be where non-belief is the dominant position, is the predominant position. And as I've said to you before, it's okay. Well, so at the moment, charities, like I look at some of the data coming out of government departments where religious organisations are contracted to do government work, and it's like, well, and we don't have a lot of data, but I remember years ago, and I have to look it up, but years ago there was some research done in the USA about how biased religious groups were in distributing government funds through their charitable organisations. The Jews are pretty good. I think they're about 50% went to Jewish people and 50% went to non-Jewish people. The Catholics didn't perform as well. I think they were like 60-40. I'll find it, but 60-40 or 70-30 in favour of their own people. And the worst were the Protestants. So like 95% went to their own people and 5% went out. And yeah, and it's like, and particularly knowing that deep down they hate non-believers. They hate non-believers. We are just we are Satan incarnate to them. And yeah, they hate us. And they're allowed to say that from the pulpit, how bad we are. But we can't say, well, it's pretty terrible what religious organisations do. But anyway.
Yeah, my experience has been
I digress.
That they love you up to the point where they love you as long as they think that there's a chance of them converting you. And after they realize that, no, you're actually rational, let me put it that way, yeah, then they can turn really nasty. They can turn really nasty, and try and undermine
Yeah,
you and undermine you in shady ways because of God. You know, God. Yeah.
yeah. I was actually having a bit of a look at that this week. So when you look at, interestingly, the Seven Mountains Mandate, which is the new apostolic Reformation, it maps pretty much onto um, Project 2025. And the structures that they put in place, when you start to look at what it is they're trying to achieve, the warfare element tracks pretty closely with the Stasi as far as how they want to infiltrate and control people through psychology and not through, you know, careful, Colin. Psychological control through coercion, and they, whenever it comes up for anti-coercion bills or to stop conversion therapy or anything, and conversion therapy, I mean, essentially, when they want us to become religious, they're trying to apply the tactics of conversion therapy to our psychology.
Mm.
It's just, they're not allowed to steal us out of our beds at night. Like you always see those teenagers that their parents in the States, and it probably happens here too. I'm sure it does. With teenagers get stolen out of their beds at night by hooded men and taken off to a reform camp to learn not to be gay or not to be rebellious.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's this is coercive control. This is psychological torture, um, and it's a big part. I mean, I would argue that religion is entirely. I mean, I understand that some people get into it and maybe love the journey, but it's got to start with this indoctrination of young children to believe bullshit. You know, you you can't I can't see how if you got a young kid and set them down like someone who'd never heard of religion, and you sat down with a priest and a philosopher like yourself and said, all right, well, explain to this kid how the world works. I can't imagine the kid would go out going, oh yeah, that God thing sounds pretty reasonable. Can you?
Given no previous experience with it, yeah. I'm thinking back to because I was a Christian.
Yeah.
I'm an apostate, one of the worst, anyway.
Yeah, another one to be killed.
The um, I was brought up in a family where we had all of the religious trimmings, and also um, I used to think, well, hang on, throughout history there've been all of these guys who've been religious, and they're super smart and they're geniuses. But I also had a love of science, and maybe that's what rescued me more than anything else. I'm not sure. Um,
Yeah, okay.
but it's only really over time that, well, born of a virgin, walking on water, um, living in a whale, um, you know, some of the absurdities of God listening to our every little, oh, please God, make sure that I pass the exam next week, how good I've been praying all week, sort of like Santa Claus stuff.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
it
that just occurred to me. Yeah, yeah.
over time, and it was a tough journey. One of the toughest parts of it, I think I recounted to you the other day, is that I had to I had to question whether I believed in God or whether I was just trying to get to heaven or whether I truly was on the side of God and there wasn't parts of me that are on the side of the devil, which there may be. Oh, look, I'm smiling. Okay.
Good
But
eye.
yeah,
There you go,
so
Kate.
so the in in the end, I realized how much, yeah, how much crap it all was, you know. And I think well, in the conversation that we had, the point where I really crossed over was that um, I know Joe Sampson, is that his name, was talking about this. When I realized that, yeah, there is no real, because I thought if you're atheist, you believe in nothing. That's the whole way they sell it. You can do anything you want. You can be as evil as we really are underneath, because we're all evil sinners. Um, nasty, nasty. I realized that was wrong. That we're actually not all evil sinners. That in fact most of us are actually pretty good people. In fact, teaching information security, one of the problems you have is too many good people in some cases trying to
Trying to
help
help
all the
out.
time. Yeah, yeah.
Of course, you can have
Uh,
a password. You seem
yeah,
legit.
yeah, yeah. Tell me, yeah, I really, the boss, anyway. Yeah, there's lots of ways in which they can use
Yeah.
that to scam you, can use your
Yeah.
niceness against you. Um,
Did you ever watch the 2600 or do you ever see the 2600 conferences?
no.
No. They used to, I don't know if they're still going. So 2600 is the frequency that you used to have to pump down the phone line to
Yeah,
get into the AT&T and Bell servers. And at their conference every year, they used to just up on stage, they'd ring up and a business, and they would always get access to the
yeah,
systems.
yeah,
They would
yeah.
always get access to the systems. It's just hacking people.
There's a
People are the weak point.
great little YouTube online of a woman, and she's playing a crying baby in the background.
Mm.
And she gets everything. She even blocks the guy out of his own password, his own account, pretending to be his wife. Oh, we better change that because he hasn't changed it for so long. So um, yeah, so using people's niceness is a really, so we're not all sinners, we're not all nasty, and we do, even though there's no cosmic purpose to my existence, there is purpose for me.
Yeah,
That was the thing that made me realize that why don't I just go with the truth and, talk about rather than talking in circles? Because I used to, talk in circles a bit because I still sort of half believed this myth that we were made better people by Christianity. And I seriously don't think so anymore. So for me, yeah, I
yeah,
could go
okay,
on and on, but
yeah,
for me, that was the turning point.
yeah, okay, yeah, okay. Oh, Beckler News. Hang on. Yeah.
Yeah, back on the
Oh
news.
yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
yeah. I hear what I do. I hear what you're saying. It's because, and as yourself talk about, the evolution of cooperation, just the mere fact for us to survive through a pretty harsh, you know, several 100,000 years or however long it might have been. Um, yeah, we learned to work together, and then at some point they learned how to hack us and get us under control. Or maybe that was just the masters back in. If you wanted a servant, you just go and capture a human in the jungle and drag them back to your house and whip them till they did what they were told.
Yeah,
Um,
anyway, yeah.
no, go
We'll,
on, go on.
we'll have a chat about evolution of cooperation one time, and because I'm really, for me that sort of brought it all together. That evolution tells the story that we're actually cooperative, um,
Mm.
because we form societies. So it's advantageous to be nice. And I mean,
Yeah.
I put quotes around it because they're definitions of that, but um, yeah,
But going through the optimal outcome is for us to cooperate.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
In general, yeah.
Yes. Military. Oh, this has been going for a while. Military wellbeing advocates continue to push for secular frontline wellbeing support in the ADF. Currently, over 60% of personnel identify as non-religious, yet the Army and Air Force still rely almost exclusively on religious chaplains. Um, religious chaplains. It's the military, it's the prison systems, it's the healthcare systems. And when these chaplains are going on a Saturday or Sunday or whatever
Schools,
day they worship, hey,
schools.
schools, yeah, schools. Um, when these chaplains are, in their own time and they're going to their mosque or temple or church or whatever, um, what are the preachers they're listening to saying? Like, how do we vet that? Oh no, you can't vet. Oh, I might come up later. I won't get ahead of myself. But yeah, like, shouldn't we be vetting these people if they're going and listening to a Christian dominionist telling them that really what they should be doing is going to work and trying to find a way to get rid of all the secular people, and find ways to get their mates in and see if they can get a job in HR and IT. If they're listening to that on the weekends, and they're the ones providing support in our military, and they're talking, because you know what they're like. They want to be sitting down with the commander of the camp because they're religious and they have such high authority. So it's not like they're just talking amongst the troops. They're building networks within the religious networks within militaries, as they do all over the world, I suppose. Hmm. All
No,
right.
yeah, it's quite a bad thing. Yeah. Um, and they're not properly trained in assisting people psychologically. And
No,
dealing with,
no.
some of the ADF coming back from these war zones. You need people who are sensitive, um,
Uh,
not people who are going to judge them based on basically fairy tales.
mm. And what are the markers of a like a cognitively healthy person? Is it someone who lives with this dissonance between the way our physical reality functions and their belief in a higher, it's not even just the belief in a higher power, that's fine, I couldn't care less, but it's like, well, I believe in a higher power and therefore we should probably be killing gay people. Like or atheists, and I think this comes up a little bit further down, although I do know that I think it was a Bangladeshi blogger who's been locked up for 4 years, just got out after a lot of pressure. Anyway, North America, legal and institutional showdowns. One of the US Circuit Courts of Appeals heard oral arguments from Reverend Roque versus Brumley, Louisiana, and Rabbi Nathan versus Alamo Heights, Texas. These cases challenge state laws requiring the display of 10 commandments in every public classroom. Because, and they only got this. Oh, well, it used to be Betsy DeVos that wanted to make the Bible mandatory book in every classroom and having all the classes structured around Bible studies. So it's getting challenged. That's good news. That's good. It needs to be. World Humanist Congress 2026 is going to be in Ottawa. Is that the one they moved? They were going to have it in America, but then they moved it to Ottawa. Was it something else? Anyway, August 7th to 9th, 2026. The theme is Humanism as Resistance, focuses on countering resurgent religious nationalism and anti-science disinformation. So, yeah, get a chance to go to that.
When I first read that, jumped out at me because I often feel humanists want to slide around resistance and avoid it. Not all humanists, but because there are humanists in history who definitely weren't like that. But I often feel like humanism as resistance is sort of, to me, a little bit of a counter,
Oxymoron.
oxymoron. Yeah,
Yeah.
why not be an atheist if why not? But I totally realize where people are going and how people get there. And it's a good
Yeah.
thing. It's a good thing.
Yeah. they've got their sort of, well, I guess in their defence, they sort of have their principles that guide the movement. So they actually have a written down set of principles
And we
which
know,
pretty
like
much.
in Melbourne, they're good activists,
Yeah.
working
Yep.
for the benefit of humanity, definitely.
Yeah, but maybe humanism as resistance is in response to this rise
Mm,
of
mm,
the Christian nationalism, of the
mm.
Christofascists. So that's good news that they're doing that. US international withdrawal. Humanists International and 60 other organisations have issued a joint letter condemning the recent US executive order withdrawing the country from dozens of international treaties. They argue this move weakens global protections for religious and non-religious minorities alike, international human rights and demographics. So, oh no, it's a new heading. Maybe I should have
Yeah.
bolded them. Yeah, so
Uh,
that they argue the move weakens global protections for religious and non-religious minorities alike. It's true. This is why I'm scared of them, particularly the Christo-fascists over here, because clearly they're shaping, or the religious dominionists, the I don't know, the scary arm of religion, which argue they all are. All you got to do is threaten to defund one of their hospitals, and they threaten to throw every sick person out of every hospital they own onto the streets. But anyway, we'll tell them they've got to perform an abortion. No, we'll close down. We'll throw everyone out. Sorry.
well, I think that leads to another big topic, which maybe we can lead to later. But I think the way in which Trump has been throwing aside the illusion, or throwing aside notions of freedom of speech, democracy. I think he recently said in Davos, uh, I don't know, his usual sort of bluster. People call me, let me see, my Trump impersonation. People are going to say that I'm a dictator. Sometimes you need dictators.
Yeah.
And with ICE, they now have people roaming the streets, no identification numbers, no, and they're wearing masks to hide their face, and they're recently employed with a 5-month training period, and they're,
I heard it was 5 weeks, but anyway.
5 weeks. Maybe you're right. 5 weeks.
Uh,
Maybe you're right. And they're shooting people. You know,
mm.
um, they're detaining US citizens on the suspicion that they might not be US citizens. And they don't have a right to. It's in the Constitution that they don't have a right to. So this kind of fascism is, surely they have the Constitution, which they love and treasure so much, and freedom of speech and their First Amendment rights and all of that, unlawful seizure and stuff, which we don't have, by the way. We don't have
No,
any here in
we got
Australia.
nothing. It's all
We've got
implied.
nothing. Um, Make sure my front door is locked. Okay. Anyway, um,
They'll be coming for you. Don't you worry about that.
so is there a
But,
sea
but
change? Is this fascism going to be more and more? Are they reaching for it because they're feeling more threatened? The powers that be? I don't know. I really hope
oh,
it's going to be countered. Um,
I can't see a way to counter it, particularly when they've put in place now. So remember in the lead up to the inauguration in this term, going back about 12 or 18 months, 2 years maybe, and they started advertising, for loyalists who wanted to work for Trump. And then they released everyone out of prison. Not everyone, but they released all the acolytes out of prison and said, you can get out now. And all of a sudden, they're employing the sort of numbers that the Stasi were employing in Germany, like in East Germany, which was way more than the Gestapo. The Gestapo were just quite happy to go and stomp on someone's
are you
head.
are
But
you talking about brown shirts? Is that I'm not clear on the
Uh,
difference between Stasi and
oh,
Brandtje.
so East Germany. So once the
Oh, East Germany.
after
Yeah.
after the war, and then and Germany split, and then um
Okay, I get it. Yep, yep.
yeah. So the Stasi were on the other. So there's a good book about that. What's it called? Stasi Land. Um, but the Secret Service, and now they've pumped up the budget for ICE. To I think it's $150 billion over the next 10 years or 5 years, whatever. Huge amounts of funding, and that's going to be the Secret Service, and that will stay there until that whole enterprise is disbanded, like DHS. It's not enough just to get rid of ICE, I don't think. But that's a problem. That's a problem for the Americans. But I think so. When you combine agents on the ground with technologies like Palantir and Trump having essentially given open access to all the data to Elon Musk when he went through his, like claimed all the records out of Treasury and Department of Labor and everything else, and now he's doing contracts for the military, and so are Palantir. I don't think I can't see pathways to resistance, unfortunately, and I think even more frighteningly, more terrifyingly, really, is you see even with our Liberal government, i.e. the Labor government, to the extent they are, you start to see where dissent is being silenced with laws like the hate speech law or like with all the best intentions. I mean, I've always been a little bit on the side of, um, free speech, but you can't shout fire in a cinema. But now I'm actually terrified by it because we stand the risk, just having this conversation here today, all we have to do is, I don't see how it could happen, but all someone who was wanting to take
Can you give
us
me an
out.
example? All too easy, isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah, it is. And so you got to think about everything you say. Journalists have got to think about everything they say. I mean,
I do think
newspapers have been
I,
have
I
been
do think
sued
to,
into
to sort of take
silence.
it another sort of grassroots level, support
Mm,
for this stuff is being fed a lot, in this case by online reporting on uh, the degradation in some of the cities that has been happening because of immigration. Now, I feel horrible saying that, and I hope everyone understands why I feel horrible saying it. And and the woke Ian really hates the racist Ian for saying that. but
mm.
um, but they're showing how bad it is in parts of, I think, in parts of France, in even in Paris, in parts of London, in some of the countries, in some of the areas around Britain. And in some cases, they've been picking on hotels that the government has seconded for um, for groups of men coming in, almost
Yep.
exclusively men of working age. I mean, what does that tell
Well, yeah,
you?
yeah, I agree.
It's
Men of working
working on
age.
people, it's work and it's going to work on people.
Yeah,
And it's at the bottom end of addressing that issue of how um, wages and conditions have been attacked over the years.
particularly in the
And you
US.
can
I think
blame
that,
the other. You can blame the immigrant. The immigrant's not to blame.
yeah. No. And look, a lot of immigrants are coming. I mean, we do know population pressures in some of these countries are huge. And we also know that high populations are really a reflection of underdevelopment and undereducation, because where you have with the education, particularly of women, you tend to see lower birth rates.
Oh, and
Um,
oppression from the West. Yeah,
yeah.
as
Well,
well
this is it.
as
Like
well as other issues.
all the
Yeah,
riches have been,
I
yeah,
don't
but
have to
all,
say.
well,
Yeah,
yeah. Riches have been dragged out of these countries for years by the West, and the West has, built golden castles and promoted the families of the
well, in
the
Niger,
entre.
in Niger
Yeah.
that only 10-20% of people have electricity, yet they're selling uranium to France and they're using it to support the lifestyle of the French because it's a colony, or
Mm.
was a colony until recently. Yeah, so yeah, but blaming the immigrant is not going to help anybody. It's going to create more and more, and it's working. It's a tool that, well, okay, I won't say it's a tool. It's an unfortunate fact that these videos are getting across to people. So One Nation, for example, is getting much, much more power. And I
Mm.
see that the National Party has separated from the Liberals. Um, and I guess we should always say, if there are people from America watching, the Liberals are not liberal. Um, but
Yeah,
yeah,
that's a Conservative Party.
yeah, big L
Yeah.
liberal, small L liberal. But so they've been separating from the Liberals now because they're seeing the power of Hanson. I think this is going to blow up in our faces.
Mm.
It's going to be really nasty. It's already blown
Yeah,
up,
well, I
isn't
mean,
it?
and the people that are although I did for the first time, I think I've ever agreed with anything that Matt Canavan said, was something he said this week, and I think it was in response to this hate speech bill. I was
That's
like,
scary. Agreeing with him. My God.
yeah, yeah, yeah. But it's going to be all those Christo fascists that end up in that what becomes of the National Party, and this is why I just don't. Well, it's not that I can't see ever there being a way out of this, but it's going to be an intergenerational challenge, and I think people don't really understand the scope of the work that needs to be done to reorganize society away from religion. It's too easy for them to, like, I was watching one of the, good to see all the people in Minnesota and Minneapolis sort of getting out on the streets and complaining about ICE. But a big part of one of the clips I saw was, these pastors, praying for the city. And it's like, I mean, what a waste of energy. But my point was that it catches so much media attention. They go out and they do a bit of praying and block a street off and they get arrested by the police, and then they make martyrs of themselves all the time. And it moderates the underlying reality that as soon as they feel threatened, they are more than willing to take up arms against anyone who threatens them. And that is, but the question becomes, all right, so if you have this God thing and you're an Australian or wherever you're from, doesn't matter. If you have this God thing and you've taken on board that his rule is what should be the rule, then where does your nationalism sit under that? Like, so it's God, and then you have this hierarchy of priests and think tanks and funding networks and businesses, and then you have the state that sort of operates under this I don't know, like the dunce's cap that sits on top. It's just, and that's where your loyalty to the country is, or to the global order. That it's going to depend on what the pastor tells you, or the priest tells you, or the imam, or the um, uh, whatever the Jewish rabbi, whatever. Like, he's going to tell you the way it is, and if it happens to be a Zionist, he's going to say, well, look, you've got to support Israel, or you've got to support Rome, or you've got to support this, or you got to whatever. You can't do is
Well,
let
like
governments
as you
bad.
say, it's been a long time in the making. And you might think, oh well, there's an inbuilt ability for people to be rational about things. But I think part of the reason that science, I think there's a couple of things, maybe, I don't know, but I think maybe the fact that there were massacres of religion against religion in Europe um, before the Reformation
Mm,
really triggered interest in democracy, real democracy. Um,
mm,
and I think also the fact that uh, conditions were increasing in the West because of science, and they needed science, and they needed people to be able to run the mechanisms of science. So even just to count money, writing, and the various machines that were coming up, working in factories. And also one scientist could really change the whole world. So having good education, they were
Mm,
all things that actually helped the powers that be. They were fueling the economy. But
mm,
now with AI and the level of automation that we have, um, we can wind that back a little bit, I'm afraid to say. I don't know. So I don't think, though, that we can just rely on people waking up and discovering science all by them. Do you know what I'm saying? I
mm,
don't think it. I
mm.
don't think it's a force of nature.
No, but no, I absolutely agree. I don't think we're going to get this awakening like a Billy Graham. Well, maybe that sort of that first wave of, I hate this term, new atheism. I'm an atheist. I was new in the 1960s. I'm not new anymore. Um,
Yeah,
but
40 years ago
I,
for me. Yeah,
yeah, I think that's sort of that regeneration of the exploration of non-belief and particularly coming out of the US, I think. But as you say, after the 30-year war and thing, I think the Europeans got a bit, like a bit standoffish and said, no, this religion's not really such a good idea. But it's not about, I don't think that the threat is coming from, if if you believe that your God, and in the case of the Catholics, it's the Pope's appointed by God, and they insist on maintaining their little piece of Rome, but it's not a country, but it's like, this is our real estate, and here's where I went through it last year, and through the Vatican. Man, they've just hoarded everything from all around the world, and
yeah.
the church is incredibly wealthy. I mean, I remember walking, we're standing in queue to go in there, and there are all these beggars out the front, and it's like, well, you know, well, it's like you got some money, you might throw them an orange or something. Just people, but Mother Teresa, I know that's good. You want beggars. It's a good thing. You don't want
Oh,
them to
and
have
wouldn't you like to have
any.
a walk through the secret library? You know, um, the
This and
treasures there, the intellectual treasures. Yeah, yeah,
yeah, the intellectual treasures and also the records. Because I think this is sort of the long way of getting to where I was going, and that is, I think that what would be termed the deep state. So here, in America, it would be the CIA and the oligarchs and the FBI as an enforcement arm, or Homeland Security now. Um, that isn't going to change. Like, governments come and go, as they like, whether it was Obama or whether it was Wilson or whoever, like Nixon. More and more in America, it's just been whoever they can promote best. I think whoever's the most um, statistically likely to get it. Like, who would have thought Trump would have got back in? I didn't. I did a bit. But yeah, it's that deep state that doesn't change with elections, like here, ASIO and the Office of the Signals Directorate, and like all of that stuff and all those dossiers they keep on everyone. I'm sure that's why they keep marijuana illegal, because they just like to have a file for everyone, and if they've got something they can use, they just want it there. And
okay.
until you can deconstruct that, um, sort of like the French. Well, then you start talking revolution. I think a revolution is going, in the long run. I think a revolution is going to be the only way out. I don't think it's going to. I can't see that it's going to be led
Okay. Well, he
by
said that.
atheists.
I didn't. Um,
Yeah, yeah, no, yeah. I'm not. I'm not so.
um,
Sorry. I'm not promoting a revolution. All right.
yeah,
I'm
no.
not.
Well, I mean, it is kind of interesting that France, America, Russia were all founded on revolutions, and they provided a huge oomph in their economies, even in Russia as well. You know, the Tsar was killing Russia. Um,
Yeah.
so yeah, so
The
they
French Revolution, the elite,
and look at China
aristocrats were
now.
just
You know,
yeah, yeah, yeah.
so yeah, we don't have to look far to see that revolution can clean things out and actually do a good job after a lot of horrible. Yeah,
Mm.
but yeah,
Could
I'm not
hopefully
mass.
avoid that, but
Yeah, if I could sing Kumbaya and spread flowers around, that's what I would do. You know, maybe I'm too much of a hippie. I come from the 60s. Maybe make love, not war. We should bring that
uh,
back. Um,
yeah. Look, man, there's nothing would make me happier. There's nothing would make
exactly.
me
Yeah,
happier.
yeah, yeah.
But the distribution of wealth now, and not just wealth, but the technology and the dangers of the acolytes behind these movements. Um, at one point the Dominionists were saying they hide it a bit more now, but at one point they were quite public about saying they want one of their people on every street, a spy on every street. They want someone watching everyone. Which sort of grew out of the shepherding movement, I believe, which came from up your way. That was out of Queensland, the shepherding movement, that New Zealander bloke. Yeah, so they're setting up.
We've got some pretty good nutty, fruity. You know, if you're my idea is fun when I was sort of climbing out of Christianity was to watch evangelistic stuff on TV on Sunday morning. Um, and the things they would promise, um, Jesus will give you fivefold, whatever, send me money so I can have two jets to fly around and give the word of God, that sort of stuff. It
Copeland,
was
yeah,
really
yeah,
huge up there. It was really huge. Um,
yeah, and they're still there. They're just, I mean, they've rebranded, and at the moment, as they're dying off, but there's always someone to step into their boots,
yeah.
like Kirk Cameron, Cameron Kirk Cameron, anyway, whatever. Um, yes,
So
yeah,
maybe we should get back to the news.
the news, yes, let's go back to the news.
Okay.
Um,
It's getting too rich for my blood. Okay.
Indonesia's new penal code on the 2nd of January 2026.
Oh,
Indonesia
okay. I have to
expanded
read.
blasphemy
I have to
laws.
read something about Indonesia, and
Yeah.
this is, I mean, incredible. There's two sites that talk about it. One is Wikipedia. I
Mm,
looked up Gemini. One
mm,
is a site called Jacobin. So I'm going to stay away from the Jacobin site and just read Wikipedia, right?
okay.
So, which is going to be very, very safe, I can assure you. So Indonesia's transitioned to the new order in the mid-1960s, 1963,
Yep.
ousted Sukarno after 22 years in the position, one of the most tumultuous periods in the country's modern history.
Mm,
It was also the commencement of Suharto's 32-year presidency. Now, I talk to people in Australia and I tell them that there was an enormous massacre at that time because of this this change in government.
yep.
And I'm met with crickets. People just don't even know about it. It sort of swept past us without even being in the media. Um, I was young at that time. I'm 63. I was only um, 12, 13 years old. But it did surprise me even then that this was happening so close to Australia, like they're our neighbour, pretty much our nearest
Mm,
neighbour.
yeah.
Um,
Yep.
and it was a huge massacre. Um, so the military's most senior officers were tortured and killed, um, and but battalion of soldiers. Somehow the guy that was selected from the soldiers got into power. Um, and it's a country that has this history that we don't even know about and was completely torn apart, you know. It's a long time since then, 32 years, maybe 60s. No, even more, 60 years. So it's but I think it's something which speaks to what's happening whenever I hear about Indonesia, that it has this history that has been kept so under wraps. So I
Sorry, I
think,
just had to mute myself.
yeah. So I think, and I know that you know the massacre was huge. It was absolutely enormous.
Just to return to the revolution for a moment, I think that it will probably be done economically, and I think it'll be global this time. I think that with not the existing blockchain technologies, but I think potentially like-minded people around the world will start to shift into a common currency. I mean, the ideal thing would have been to go ahead at Bretton Woods to go ahead with the I can remember what it was called, but it was going to be a global currency for trade, and that would have been perfect. And then every country just has its own local currency and
I do
global
know that
settlements.
they floated the idea of a Tobin tax, and the Americans were against that. Unfortunately, that probably would have cleaned up everything.
Yeah, Tobin tax would be really good. It could ostensibly it could be applied as a border tax, but Australia is so reluctant to tax anyone except for low income earners.
You and me, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, no. Anyway, so Indonesia, yeah, terrible thing. And the CIA say were very involved there. The US again.
I didn't say that. He did.
No, no, I did. It was me. Anyway, the new penal code introduced on the 2nd of January this year expanded blasphemy laws took full effect. The code now criminalizes inciting hatred against recognized religions, creating a significant legal risk for the country's growing atheist population and those expressing non-belief. Inciting hatred. See, this is where we used to be, was inciting hatred, and now it's like making someone feel scared. So there's been a real change at we're even more restricted than that. Except I dare say a penalty is probably aren't as harsh. Yeah, so the code now criminalises inciting hatred against religions. Anyway, so that's it.
Against
It's not.
recognized religion. Yeah.
Yeah, it's not blasphemy anymore. It's inciting hatred against religion. So it's blasphemy rebranded. Are these laws that we're introducing around the world at the moment? All right, Latin American nuns. A January 26
And
Pew Research
is
report.
that NONESs?
Yes, yes.
It is nuns?
Yeah, yeah, nuns.
Nuns.
Yeah, us. Latin American nuns. Yeah, you always got to clarify that, don't you? Particularly in Latin America. January 2026 Pew Research report confirms that the percentage of religiously unaffiliated individuals in several Latin American countries, including Argentina and Chile, has now surpassed the percentage of Protestants, indicating a historic shift towards secularism and a traditionally Catholic stronghold. That's what I mean. Globally, we've got more in common with other secular communities than we do with many of the religious communities that present over here.
Mm.
As far as but then if you're a secular state, it shouldn't make any difference. The religious people can go off and do their religious stuff and leave everyone else alone. Anyway, European legal challenges. European Court of Human Rights is currently reviewing a petition from a union of atheists in Greece to remove religious icons from courtrooms, arguing they violate the principle of judicial neutrality. So we don't know what the outcome is there yet. Culture and science. The Science of War, new research published mid-January, explores how secular awe found in nature, science, and the arts serves the same psychological and social bonding functions as traditional worship, providing a framework for reverence without submission. That's nice. The humanists be up on board with that. UK circumcision debate.
Oh,
Found...
just to speak on that.
Yeah.
Um, oh, what was his name?
Keep talking. I can
Yeah,
hear
there
you.
was a
I can hear you.
yeah.
I can hear
There
you.
was a guy. Oh, I'm wanting you to remember his name for me.
Yep. What is it?
Not Arthur
Tell
C.
me about it.
Clarke. There was a great science popularizer in America.
Carl Sagan.
Carl Sagan. Yeah.
Yeah.
And yeah, he really as a kid, that sort of thing really woke me up to how amazing the universe really is. Just I mean, he always had these sort of mind-bending shifts of perspective, but it's still it shows you how lucky we were to have all that science being done around us, and that we could access it. As a kid, for various reasons, I wasn't very sporty when I was younger, so I hung out at the library, and as a
Yeah.
result of that, I sort of ate my way through the science section of the library, the school library, the local library. Yeah, it really is awesome. Science could really be awesome.
Yeah, back in the days where you didn't have to have fair and balanced reporting, where it's like, here's a scientist says this, and here's a priest says that. Who
Yeah,
knows?
yeah. I guess so. Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, that's good news, that there's secular awe has, yeah, the same psychological and social bonding functions. So there is hope for and then comes back to this charity thing. So we need centers of secular awe in all communities. Wherever there's a church, we need an fair and balanced center of secular awe.
Yeah, and if they ever say anything against us, then it's hate speech. Yeah.
Yeah, well, this is another road for us to go down, or something we need to explore, I think, because if they're up in their pulpits saying how terrible we are, it does make me scared. It does. The thought
Yeah.
of the Pentecostals or the evangelicals getting any more hold of government than they've already got, as everyone flocks to Hasty and all of those far right extremists, and we've got the sovereign citizens, and we've got the Nazis who are all saying, Jesus Christ. And it's scary, man. It's scary.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah, I'm just cementing that position in now, so that if I ever end up caught, or so I was scared. This is a fear reaction. That
Well,
was
I mean,
a fear reaction, or
different
psychological
people
pressure.
live in different situations, and um, there are people who should be really scared. Depending what country you live in, what your social circumstances are, what your boss is like, or your HR department. Um,
Yeah, HR,
you know,
right too.
it can affect your entire life, your ability to have a house and a nice family, that sort of thing. I have those things now, but other people, yeah, it's really scary.
Yeah, I'll tell you, just in relation to that, I did see something during the week I think it's in the UK Met, their police force. They asked their officers to disclose if they were members of any hierarchical group. And of course, the Masons immediately said, no, you can't ask that question. But some of them volunteered the information. I don't know where that's going, but that's not unreasonable to know what the religious makeup is of publicly funded organisations. Because I'm willing to bet that in the charity sector, even though they
Oh, for sure.
portray themselves as being, a secular arm of a religious organisation, I'm sure that if you surveyed them, you would find that there's a huge bias in employment away from the secular community.
Mm.
Definitely in that sector, and I suspect in the public sector as well, but who knows?
Well,
Anyway, we're
I
nearly
think there's
gone.
been, and I think you know this more than I think you've actually looked at numbers for studies of that. Maybe we should have a deeper conversation about that
Yeah,
at a
and I
later
guess this
date.
is and I guess this is where I think there's an existing secular community out there in Australia, and I think and all of them, all of them doing good work in their own way. But I do think we need to get more organised, because I think we often have to depend on studies that were done overseas to get an indication of sort of where religion, like why on earth they don't have to disclose their property holdings or their revenues from tithe, which is
Oh,
effectively a
yeah.
tax, which is effectively a tax, and they don't declare it, and it's just, it's all because we're doing charity and it's good. Well, we need that same support infrastructure, but we're not recognised as doing it. But part of the reason is because we haven't had hundreds of years to build up the organisations to take advantage of the contract opportunities. So it's not like there's a whole saying secular doesn't mean much anymore, but there's not like a huge atheist organisation that's running retirement villages around the country or running hospitals around the country for our community. Because our community, I've spoken to members of our community, they don't want to end up in an old people's home run by a religious organisation where there's
No.
a bloke in a black frock sort of creeping around the corridors, where they can't go and look at end of life care plans, like the end of life planning. What do you call it? Probably blacked it out of my mind. Don't want to think about it. But when you have to make a decision.
Beginning of afterlife care plan and stuff. Yeah, yeah.
Well,
No,
yeah, but
I don't
but
want that. I don't want someone sort of preaching to me when I'm
no,
half, if I'm up, especially if I'm lose my capacity to argue against it, Jesus,
yeah,
that's a crime, really.
exactly. And
And
if I don't, oh, go on, please.
uh, I don't have enough data to go on to say that it's happening, but I know it's happening,
Well, we know that a lot of these homes are saying. So when it comes, I mean, end of life care. If like I've made it clear that if I lose my cognitive capacity, that well, first of all, I want my body to go down to Monash Hospital, and they can have
Yeah.
a look inside, see what it is. And
Oh, do you want
the good
someone? Do
thing,
you want someone to turn off the machine for you? I'll do it.
Shell's already
You can
volunteered
do
for that.
mine. No, I'm kidding.
um, yeah, and then you just come back as a
Talk
shoebox
about
full of
gallows
asphalt.
humor. Yeah, yeah,
But yeah, I want to make that decision. I want to have control over that decision. I don't want to be sitting in a wheelchair by a window for 14 hours a day, dribbling and having
mm,
the nappies
mm.
changed. I just,
No, yeah, neither
and
do
that
I.
choice should be available to us. And the fact that religious organisations say, well, that'd be nice, but we're not going to let in anyone to advise you on that, and we're going to fight, any laws for, God, why can't I think the name of it? Ending your own life, suicide, medical suicide when you've had enough. I
Yeah,
think that's
yeah.
fine. Anyway,
Oh, yeah. It's a good thing, and
you,
it's and we have to acknowledge that the medical profession has actually it's adjusted. The world hasn't, but they have, and they're doing lots of good things to stop people from ending up in those situations if they're let know. If they
yeah, yeah.
uh, but it needs to be more accepted and understood. Um, but it uh, does require a change, doesn't it, away from religion to do that.
Yeah, it does, because at the moment, like if someone wants to neck themselves, like even I get that if you decide that you just had a gutful and you want to end it all, that you'd probably want to go and talk to someone about it.
Mm.
But if you don't have that, it's just, some young kid ends up driven into a tree, or a farmer blows his head off because, the whatever. Or the farm, I'm talking about farmers and young people. People commit suicide because they've had enough, and that can be a fair enough choice. It's not. Why is it for society to make that decision for someone? And it's because it's against God's law. At the end of the day, it's because it's against God's law. Which brings us to our next point: UK circumcision debate. The Crown pros- the Crown prosecutions.
Okay.
I've
It
said it.
is a dot
I've
point,
said.
that's for sure, on our list. Okay.
Segue, good segue there.
Yeah. Okay. Oh, can I read this one? No, you read it out. It's
Yeah, no, go on.
no, it's
Go on.
juicy, too juicy. No, you you
All right.
you, you prepared.
Crown Prosecution Services in the UK is facing pressure from secular groups to class non-therapeutic male circumcision as a form of child abuse, framing as a matter of bodily autonomy over religious tradition. Now, two things with that. I want my foreskin back. I'm not happy.
Yeah, me too.
And bodily autonomy, and yet people get up in arms about. And this is not to say that I agree with female circumcision as well, because we talk about that as female genital mutilation, and
Yeah,
yet we talk
yeah,
about
absolutely. Yeah,
male
yeah.
circumcision
Good
as though
point.
it's a
Good
medical
point. Yeah, yeah.
procedure. They're both the same. You're cutting up some poor young kid's dick, and of either gender, and it's just like, what the fuck? And our society, again, our society rolls over, our government rolls over, and it's like it's always got to be a battle. So you got to
I'm
go. You got to
thinking in
go
my
to
head,
war
how
with.
do I answer that? Because you're not really cutting off their dick, right? But yeah, okay. Keep going. Sorry.
It's back to that year one when the two of them out of the jungle go back to the village in the desert there. And it's like, no, I've got a good idea. God told me I just got to cut off their dicks. And it's like, what? Cut off the whole dicks? And it's no. I
Cut off
just want
the
to
end
cut
of
off a
their
little
dick.
bit of
Yeah.
their dick on the end. Yeah.
I remember that. Yeah, yeah. Really funny. Really funny.
They ran away at night. I think they went to Sodom or Gomorrah, one of the two. Anyway, yeah. So that's it for the news. But I did want to tell you, I got my book. Can you see that?
Oh, very good.
See that? Yeah. I'm not plugging it. Well, I am. I heard I've heard Michael talk about this. The author talk about this just on YouTube. Um, and he's apparently Michael Hudson is the foremost expert on the financial and monetary systems of the antiquarian Western and Near Eastern world, from Mesopotamia to the fall of the Roman Empire. And what he looks is about the development of our monetary systems through that. So he looks at the development of monetary systems, and then the introduction in the Catholic Church, because they couldn't charge interest, but they wanted interest, so he employed some bankers to do that on their behalf. But they essentially funded most of Europe's wars for hundreds of years, and all of the European
Wow, that
kings
would be interesting. I'm serious.
built up, yeah,
Yeah,
built up big debts that they had to pay back to the church in
I
Rome.
might
A-
download it on Kindle. Temples of
yeah, okay.
Enterprise.
Yeah, you can borrow it. I've only just got it. I was just very excited to get it because I'm going to read that. But yeah, and so he talks about how central and in effect a modern monetary banking system. So with central banks around the world, they grew out of this. They grew
Mhm.
out of the Catholic Church with central banks as because once a king had sort of defaulted on his debt to the Catholic Church, they would say, well, here's the condition of you getting some money back, is that we're going to run your banking system.
I think
And that morphed into the modern
that
banking world.
that whole issue of um, money supply and how it's
Mm-hmm.
distributed, the history of it looks super interesting. So that book looks good. Um, uh, People just don't, I realized a couple, maybe 10 years ago, where does money come from? How is it made? And the story is not just that they print it, they print money at the Treasury. In fact, not a lot of money is actually made that way.
No, mostly made within the banking system.
Yeah, and how that works and why it works and why it doesn't work. What kind of economic modeling isn't being done because we're straitjacketed into an
Yeah, yeah,
approach that benefits, a certain uh, group of people. Um,
yeah, yeah.
and I'm not an economist, right? I'd love to know more about it. I'm really interested in Steve Keen's approach, and he sort
Yep,
of
yep.
starts with explaining where money gets created by banks through a kind of explanation that involves double entry bookkeeping.
Yeah, he tends
Mainly.
to apply accounting rules to his analysis, I think.
Yeah,
I
and I
keep
think
I keep trying to start his course, but
it's a good thing if you understand double entry bookkeeping. And I had to do that one time because I was dividing up a business, and
okay.
and I realized I didn't know how it worked. Um, and I sort of discovered the tricks of it. Um, I mean, for a lot of history, it was actually used to discover fraud because you had to balance the columns. And if fraud was going on,
Holy,
the guys didn't know how to do it properly, and so they couldn't
yeah,
balance it.
yeah,
Nowadays, fraud balancing of the columns is done automatically with software,
yeah,
so
yeah.
the fraudsters get
Piccoli,
away with it.
he was an Italian bloke working for, I think, the Medicis, but up in Florence. That's where it came from.
Oh, right,
But
okay.
yeah, so they
And it
needed to
is,
be able to count their money. Probably
excuse
from the
me.
church.
Anyway,
Yeah,
I'm thinking I might have a go at Steve Keen's course when I get a free moment. That'd be really interesting. Uh,
yeah.
he's an
I
interesting dude. I like the fact that he
yeah.
says that um, economies should be run by real science, not just by sort of wishful thinking, and that people shouldn't talk about economics if they're not really basing it on real science. And he says, including me. um, but he does have a quite a scientific approach, and there are other
yeah.
people too down through. There are other people too who are looking at economics more from from how segments of society interact with each other. Um,
Yeah. It's sort of interesting, isn't it? Because the transactions, well, all of the transactions of all of the finances everywhere in the world are recorded. One way or the other, they're recorded. So ostensibly and it's not huge data. Like generally, it like it runs
oh,
around on a
can
block.
I
That
just
runs
point?
around on a
Can I make
blockchain.
a point here? I
Yeah.
I teach. I used to teach database building databases for
Yep. Yep.
businesses, and they were
Yep.
all that kind of database, what we call a normalized database, where every cent is recorded and every person's name is recorded, and you have mechanisms for keeping it completely accurate right down to the last cent. What
Mm.
I've been teaching more recently is big data being used to get advantage from the absolute ocean of information that's passing through businesses because of the internet. And that information gets sold and passed on, all that kind of stuff.
Mm.
That's completely different. That's a trawling huge amounts of unorganized data compared to building these really tight pieces of data to keep track of where your money is. Um,
Yeah. Yeah.
and
That's. I
is,
mean, that's what auditors do. They'll look. as a starting point, they'll look at grossly the accounts and the relationships between
Mm.
income and cost of goods sold, and like, so you're looking at the big structural amounts and saying, gee, that's you didn't buy much stock to sell 10,000 units of that.
Yeah.
Bought a kilo of lead and you
Well,
sold
yeah.
10,000 sinkers.
I mean, it's kind of interesting because it's hard to get across. Well, I had to learn it, but it's hard to get across to students that there are these two types of databases. Neither is superior, but they have their separate purposes. Right? Big data and what we call transactional data.
Yeah. And the transactional data is the data that, in
Accountants will use.
theory, but that you can trace even the shadow banking transactions and everything else. If that data was made clear, if it was
Mm,
transparent,
mm.
um, it only stands to embarrass, you'd imagine, one group of people. Um, oh, maybe we can avoid the revolution. Just make all the data transparent on finance. See where it's going and how it's being used and who's benefiting from it. Because I think, yeah, I think this inequality. I mean, I quite like Gary. I'm going to see him shortly, Gary Stevenson. Um, and Yanis
Yeah,
Varoufakis coming out as well.
yeah,
We should go see
yeah.
that. Yeah. Um, yeah. I mean, so we certainly have the compute to be able to track global finance.
Actually, we do now. We didn't. Forgotten his name. Really brilliant mathematician. Forgotten his name. Um, Let me just quickly look him up. Worth looking up because he was really amazing. Um, After the Second World War, this guy tried to develop mathematical models based around economic sectors. Um,
Yep.
and his, boy, how come I've lost it? Oh, I know why I've lost it. I've got the wrong file here. Um, von Neumann. So
Oh,
von
okay. I
Neumann
know that name.
developed architecture for the computer, which has stayed till today.
Yeah.
For the basic architecture. And yes, he tried to develop models of economy that were based on modeling each of the sectors and interacting with them. Computers just weren't good enough to hold the models
Yeah. Yeah.
in those
I
days.
mean,
Yeah.
yeah. So, well, and this is the thing. I mean, there's the models. Models are one thing, and I guess as I understand it, Steve Keen's approach is essentially saying, no, these are real values, and you do double entry. So if you are doing A here, you do B there. There's always this double entry. There are two
The other,
transactions that go on.
if I can just interrupt, the other thing
Yeah,
with
yeah,
Steve Keen is he reckons that the economy is not just static. There's not just two lines crossing, meeting at the middle and staying there in equilibrium, but there are changes. Who would have thought?
yeah. Well,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. Exactly,
So
exactly.
he models
It's yeah,
changes in the economy with um, differential equations. Yeah.
yeah. So, but the point being, there's either well, and this is probably the difference between a ledger system and a model. A ledger system records the transactions. Now I know that all the financial transactions somewhere or other are going into a ledger because every business and every government has like every government department has a ledger of their assets and liabilities and their revenues and expenses and their equities or whatever. But so ostensibly, and with the compute we got available now, there's absolutely no reason, you'd imagine with the data center in every country that you couldn't be processing all of those transactions. I mean, Centrelink is one of the biggest processing infrastructures in the world, apparently, because it's such a convoluted structure, I think. But they used to run off old IBM mainframes back in the 70s, and
Mm,
they still use it. Like the back end is still the same, I think. I mean, it's migrated from the mainframes, but it's still the same back end.
mm.
So we can certainly we would certainly have the
Oh yeah,
capacity, I would imagine,
we
to be
could
able
certainly
to
we could record all the transactions from pretty much every company in Australia in a one
chuck
terabyte
it,
file.
chuck it
Yeah.
onto USB stick.
Yeah, it's not big
Yeah.
data. Yeah, yeah.
No, no. So it's and that sort of transparency is probably, and that's what I was sort of alluding to. Well, I suppose I'm thinking it through now, but that sort of transparency, I think, is where the revolution will come from, because it's going to be pretty unfair as AI does take jobs, and as it came up with Greenland, didn't it? We don't want to be American. We like healthcare and education. we like a bit of a social safety net. You could be American and earn $2.50 an hour for working in a coffee shop.
Well, you
Know.
Australians, you've had it too good for too long. You've got to start to accept user pays, and if you get sick, well, tough.
Mate, I'm saving up for a robot that can go to work for me. That's
That'd
that's me
be
future proof.
nice. Yeah, that'd be
Yeah,
nice.
that's me future proofing things. Yeah. Well, and this is
Um,
what a lot of the talk in the AI community seems to be that, particularly I can't think of his name now. What's the name of his thing? Sure, I'll look it up for next time. Um, I think he was at Google. I think he was at DeepMind. But he's saying that really everyone should have their own AI model for them. Like it should be open source, and everyone should have their own AI. And that it's got to be democratized, and that everyone in the world should have it, and then they generate tokens which translate into an income for
mm,
expenses
I don't see
spending.
that. What I see happening is what happened with Google. It just soaked up Lycus and Ask Jeeves, and kids won't know what I'm talking about, but all of the search engines, Excite,
Yeah.
Yahoo, um, there was a huge number. I was really amused. They had one episode of The Big Bang where they were all remembering names of past search engines. Um,
Okay.
and, but what's happened to all of those? They've been sucked up by Google. In fact, Google is the verb. You know, I think what they imagine
Mm.
might happen is that there'll be a Google AI. Instead of being a whole bunch of naughty boys, there'll be one that comes out, there'll be a big brother one that comes out that sort of usurps the rest, and that we'll be able to talk to cleanly and will give authoritative responses, a bit the way that Google worked, authoritative.
Well, yeah, yeah. Well, I've been looking at IBM's
So
Granite, which is
I
open
mean,
source, and I go on.
I just don't see it happening that everyone will have their own AI. It's like everyone having their own search engine. But
Um, well, it's not really, not really, because I'm looking at Granite at the moment. I'm trying to install it on my ThinkPad, which is being a nightmare because I'm trying to configure IP addresses. But anyway, um, and their models, they've got some pretty small models, and the research seems to indicate that these smaller models trained on better quality data for specific applications are really good.
mm,
And for sort of general stuff, like, I don't know, it's 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 either the specific applications, like we just want to look at proteins, or we just want to look at chest X-rays, or we just want to look at blood work results or whatever it might be. Those models are pretty small, but as far as an individual AI, all I need is a language model that speaks English, for the most part, that speaks English, that is trained on um, the corpus of my choice, which doesn't include any religious text. Well, actually, no, I tend to go with the notion of the academic subject codes, the ANSIC, ANSIC, NZSIC. Like your subject has a code that you've got to
Oh,
do.
yeah.
And moving religion and putting it under mythology and separating it. Philosophy can stay in, that's fine, but put religion under mythology, and then I can just close that section off, because I don't think it's useful in the world, and certainly not to me. And I find it confounding, even when you interact. Not so much anymore. I think models get to know you a little bit. But Gemini would always say, "Oh, well, it could be evolution, but it could be God." Like, well, no,
Yeah.
that's not the answer I'm looking for. So to be useful for me, I guess it needs to have some cookbooks, cooking lesson videos. Like, I can still subscribe to YouTube and like to the YouTube things and that. I don't know that I can't see a barrier to having my own model. And
I like the way that social media has democratized media.
Yes.
I think to a point where it's now threatening, and they're trying to close off avenues that are threatening. Yeah, I agree with that, but I can see what you're sort of saying, having your own, tweaking your own search engine sort of thing, tweaking your own AI to give you responses that are relevant for you.
Yeah,
I can
and
see
to
what
run
you're saying
agents.
now,
And to run agents from with I think it's Agent Zero, which is an open source agent platform that's apparently very, very, very good. Can run off one of the smaller Granite models. And in effect, you've got to sandbox it so it doesn't, rewrite your operating system if it goes rogue. But, that could do a lot for me as far as organising my documents, but still keep them secure within a sandbox and still be able to take, the capabilities of AI to look for patterns and be able to go through I've had Gmail for more than 20 years. I've got a lot of old emails in my inbox.
Yeah.
To be able to sort through that sort of stuff and set my schedule and do my banking, rationalize my banking and all that sort of stuff. Oh, gold's gone through the roof, hasn't it? Gold and silver.
Oh boy. Oh,
going off.
don't tell me about it. I could have anyway. Yeah.
Yeah.
Look, maybe we should get to. We're running a long time. Maybe we should get to our last point. What do you think? On the
All
list.
right. I don't know. That was it. The
Oh yeah,
circumcision.
was it? Okay,
the circumcision. Yeah, we're done.
You
Cut it off
yeah,
wherever you want.
what a great note to finish on, circumcision. Okay.
Yeah, exactly. This can just be chat afterwards. You can cut that out. And we'll just say our goodbyes and
Yeah.
that was good.
I think
That
we
was fun.
smiled quite a few times. Maybe not
Yeah,
through the whole thing, but every now and
had a
then.
bit of a laugh. You grimaced a bit when I talked of revolution, but
Vive la revolution. Yeah.
Yeah, that's it. You can always edit that out. It's all right.
Yeah.